quick show of hands. How many of you have ever eaten a piece of fruit? Okay, good. Next one's a little more tough. How many of you have ever planted a fruit tree? Okay. All you others, where'd you get your fruit? All you other people that raised your hand said you ate fruit. Where'd you get your fruit? Did you steal it off somebody else's tree? Or did you eat fruit from a tree you didn't plant? I have. And if this church, and God has used it in any way, shape, or form where it has benefited you, it has blessed you, it has strengthened you, it has encouraged people that you know, encouraged people that you love, it has given you a place and a purpose, then you have benefited from people who came before you and planted, and you just came in and got the fruit, which is just fine. That's why they planted. It's also why I'm going to challenge you to plant as well. We'll talk more about that next week. But when I get a chance to travel, like when I got a chance to go to Ivory Coast. Where's Elgin? When I got to go to Ivory Coast where Elgin's from, I've been in his house. He wasn't there, but I've been in his house eating his food. Your food's good. Thanks for letting me have it. Well, you were there, weren't you? Yeah, you were there. That's right. Yeah, Michael was here. But I go to Elgin and I asked the local missionary, hey, in this culture, we call it Ivory Coast. They don't. They call it Côte d'Ivoire. Did I pronounce it right? All right, thank you. That's one way I can show honor. Honestly, how do you pronounce your country? But I asked the missionary, what's considered honoring around here? What's dishonoring? Is it honoring to shake a hand? And so one of the things I learned is when you go to visit someone's house, you're not allowed to leave. You're sitting there and you can't just say, hey, I've got to go. No. Dishonoring. You have to ask permission to leave. And here's how you ask permission to leave. May I have the road, please? And if they like you, if they don't like you, they'll say, sure, go, get out of here. Go. If they like you, they'll say, no. You may have half the road. Yeah, he hates talking out loud. You may have half the road, because the other half is for you to come back and visit me again. Now let's turn the tables. Let's say someone from Côte d'Ivoire contacts you and says, hey, I'm coming to the U.S. How do I honor people in the U.S.? How do we dishonor people in the U.S.? What do you tell them? Our culture, all it knows how to do is dishonor pretty much. Our culture's lost so much when it comes to how to honor somebody. And the scripture tells us we're challenged to honor people. Why are we such a culture of dishonor? It may be, go back to the fact that we don't honor God. It may be that in our conversations, frequently as a culture and as a society, we're more worried about getting the upper hand than taking the lower knee. But I want to pin it to one thing in particular, and it has to do with the next generation coming up. But I don't think it's their fault. I think they inherited it. The next generation specifically, and many of you are part of that, if we're not careful, we'll confuse honor with respect. They're two different things. We'll confuse honor with agreement. You can honor somebody and not agree with them. Matter of fact, you need to be able to honor somebody and not feel like you're in full agreement with them. Respect is earned. Honor is given. Honor is given. Respect is about how that other person acts, their behavior, their character. Honor is not about their actions. Honor is about your actions towards them. If you have a parent that is serving 10 years, you can still honor them. If they're doing 10 years in jail for doing some horrible stuff, you can still honor them. You probably shouldn't obey them. You probably shouldn't copy them. You probably shouldn't try and do more than them and get a 20-year sentence. But you can still honor your father, even if he's been arrested and he's locked up. You can still give him honor, not for his performance, but for his position. If you were my parent, if you were my coach, if you were my political leader, I can honor you, regardless of your performance as my parent, as my coach, or my political leader. I can honor you regardless of your positions on certain moral issues. I can honor you regardless of your opinions or your preferences. And I can honor you without obeying you. I can honor you without agreeing with you. I can actually honor you without even having a deep respect for who you are and what you stand for. And I can definitely honor you even though I would tell you, please don't influence my son. Don't influence people I love. But I can still show you honor. Any living president, current or any other living president, if they were to walk through the door right now, that'd be really weird because Secret Service would be everywhere. But we could properly honor them. Not for their performance, but for their position. And we could do that without compromising anything that we believe or that we hold. If we think we have to agree with someone 100% to honor them, that's where our culture is headed, and it's a dangerous spot. We have to agree with someone 100% to honor them. We won't be able to agree with anybody but our current self, which is pretty much idolatry, thinking that we are the center of the universe. We can honor and disagree. And that's something our culture has lost, but we're not called to be to be our culture. We are called to be light in darkness and salt on the earth as believers. The level of honor that we give is frequently determined by the value we receive. And if we give low honor, it's because we think we're receiving low value. And our culture gives who does our culture give high honor to? Celebrities. Because what? They know how to say back words in front of a camera that somebody else wrote and they're very attractive? Because they're really good with a sporting object in front of lots of people and make a lot more money than you can even dream of? That's what we give honor to, but we do. Our culture does. If Tom Brady walked through the door, whether you're a Patriots fan or not, you would act differently immediately. Totally. Why is it that so much of our culture doesn't give much honor to people that can't do much for them socially or financially, or they don't have a lot of power, or maybe they don't have the intellectual, they're not playing with a full deck is used as a joke, but maybe they're not. Maybe they don't have the same intellectual capacities that you do. As believers, we're called to outdo one another in showing honor. And we can show honor to people that can't do much for us. And what will that say to the world when they look into the church and look at us and see us showing honor to people that can do nothing for us? Isn't that what Jesus did for you? I mean, what did Jesus do when he looked at you and said, I'm going to die for them because look what they can give me? No, he just did it. But we're going to take a passage of Scripture and look at it where Jesus and honor were coming face to face. Matthew 13. I had this off. Let me get this on. Matthew chapter 13. When Jesus had finished these parables, he moved on from there. Coming to his hometown, he began to teach the people in their synagogue. Coming to his hometown. Do you ever think about Jesus having a hometown? Everyone's from somewhere. Jesus was from somewhere too. On the count of 3, I want you to shout the name of your hometown. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Cleveland. We're all from somewhere. Jesus was from somewhere, and he came back to his hometown, and he went into their synagogue and started teaching. Think about that. He's now in a position of authority, talking and teaching to people that watched him grow up. And they were amazed. When did this man get this wisdom and miraculous power? Is not what they said. How did he get this wisdom and miraculous power? Is not what they said. Where did this man get this wisdom and miraculous power? Where did he get this? We know where he is from. He's from us. He's one of us. He's no better than us. Who does he think he is? Isn't this the carpenter's son? Nothing against carpenter, sorry, Matt. Isn't this the carpenter's son? Isn't his mother's name Mary? Aren't his brothers' names James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas? Note to self, yes, Jesus had a brother named Judas. That's awkward. Aren't all his sisters with us? Jesus had little sisters. Where then did this man get all these things? And they were offended at him. Here's local boy now up on the pulpit talking to us as if he's somebody. At this point, sometimes I feel for Kyle Rogers, the pastor at Pittsburgh Nazarene Church, because he is in the pulpit at that church right now preaching to people who changed his diaper because he grew up in that church. How challenging could that be? I think it's funny. But Jesus said to them, I tell them that. And they took offense at him. But Jesus said to them, only in his hometown and in his own house is a prophet, say it with me please, without honor. No honor. So what's the result of Jesus not receiving honor? And he did not do many miracles there because of the lack of faith. If you're following along with your notes or you're watching online, be sure to connect with Russ, who is our host there online. But if you're following along, the first fill in the blank is simply this: dishonor. What is that? To treat as common. To treat something as common. Jesus is a limited commodity. There's only one Jesus. If there's anything special and unique, it's Jesus. And he comes to where he should have been held in higher esteem. And he was treated in low, like a common. It's just another guy. Matter of fact, it's worse than another guy. It's another guy who's one of us that thinks he's better than us now. To dishonor means to treat as common. But to honor would be to esteem and lift up. See, honor builds up, and dishonor is going to tear down. Honor believes the best about somebody. Dishonor believes the worst. Honor values them. Dishonor devalues. Watch this, tying back to the scripture. If the spirit of dishonor limited Jesus, before Jesus came there, he was teaching, doing tons of miracles. Before he went there, teaching tons of miracles. Now he comes here, teaches, they're offended at him. He's without being honored there. And because of a lack of faith, he can only do a little bit. If the spirit of dishonor limits Jesus, what does the spirit of dishonor do to your spouse? It limits them. What can a spirit of honor do? It can empower them. A spirit of dishonor limited Jesus' power. Limited him. Now, could he have forced it? Sure. Because he was definitely dishonored on the cross. But he didn't do many miracles there. The spirit of dishonor limited Jesus. When you dishonor your coach, when you dishonor your teacher, when you dishonor your boss, it does not empower them. It limits them. When you are dishonored, you don't sit there and go, I've been dishonored, now I'm going to chase things even harder. No, it's a shot. It's difficult. You want a common marriage? Dishonor your spouse. What does that mean? To insult them? No, just treat them as common. Just treat them as somebody else driving down the road. I mean, could you imagine if you're driving down the road, your spouse was coming the other way and you didn't wave? You just treat them as common. Is it sin? No, it's not sin. It's dishonorable. It's dishonorable. You just treat them as someone else shopping in the store. Don't treat them as anybody different. You want an exceptional marriage? Highly esteem your spouse. Treat them as precious. Treat them as valuable. Treat them as not just another person. They are somebody more than another person in your life. They are your spouse. And you might say, well, how can I honor them? They're not acting honorably. Respect is earned. Honor is given. Treat them with honor. They might start behaving a little bit more honorably. But if you continue to dishonor them, it's very unlikely they're going to rise above your dishonor. And as believers, not as Americans, not as citizens, not as humans, as believers, we are called to love one another with brotherly affection and to outdo one another in showing honor. Do what you should do, checkbox, and then some. We're really good at doing what we should do. Especially many of us as believers. We do what we should do because we don't want to feel guilty. We don't want to say we didn't do what we were supposed to do. We want to check the boxes. But then do some more. Do some more. Is someone honoring you right now by teaching your children Infusion? When you go to pick them up, outdo them in honor. Do more for them than they did for you. Is someone loving your 1 or 2-year-old that was screaming his bloody head off a few moments ago? That's all right. That's what they're there for. That's why they're there. But are they honoring you? When you go to pick them up, outdo them with honor. You know, one way we try and outdo people with honor, I was thinking this as I was putting the notes together and came up with this photo. Is that crazy or what? Look at all the cars in the parking lot. That's about 8:15, about a month and a half or 2 months ago. 8:15 in the morning. And we're out there. And it looked like a moron standing out there underneath that umbrella in that rain, right? But the idea is, who's taking the photo? I am. I'm moron number 2. He's moron number 1. It's ridiculous, isn't it? When the first time you pulled up and you saw us with umbrellas like that, what did you think? Goodness. We did what we're supposed to do, and then some. Now, if you come in next Sunday and it's raining and we don't have umbrellas, you're going to say, I'm getting out of here. They don't have umbrellas for us. Probably not. But if you drove up to church and it was a downpour and you had a guest with you that you invited and you've been asking them to come and they finally showed up and you saw those umbrellas, it's my church. It's how we roll. That's what we do. We do umbrellas. We do them big too. Why? Outdo one another in showing honor. Outdo it. I was walking somebody out and service had already started, like second or third service, but I wasn't needed in here for about 10, 15 minutes. And I said, so where are you parked? They go, oh, you don't want to walk us out there. Where are they parked? Way out in the corner. Let's go. Let's go. Outdo one another. Outdo one another. So who should we honor? This is not in your notes. You can jot it down. Who should we honor? Our mother and father. No surprise there. Pretty simple. It's all throughout the scriptures. If you're 14, you should honor your mother and father. If you're 34, you should honor your mother and father. If you're 74 and they're deceased, you should still honor your mother and your father. Who else should we honor? We should honor those who are in authority. Pay your taxes and government fees to those who collect them, and give respect and honor to those who are in authority. Can you imagine? I hope you don't have to go there, but eventually you may end up in a spot where someone stands up in a uniform and says, "All rise, the honorable blah, 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 please, is anyone in the courtroom? All rise." I don't know if that judge is honorable. They called him honorable. Is he honorable? I don't know. But it's not going to break my back to stand when he walks in. It's not going to hurt me to honor him. They're not asking me to bow down in worship to the government. They're just simply asking me to honor somebody. I can do that. I can do that. Government leaders, coaches, teachers, bosses, if you treat them as ordinary and common, they may not feel as empowered to lead. Show them honor. The scripture also tells us to honor our church leaders. The elders who direct the affairs of the church are worthy of double honor. Double honor right here. That's me, double honor. I want a double wide parking spot for a Mini Cooper. Makes no sense. Especially those whose work is preaching and teaching. For the scripture says, do not muzzle the pastor. The ox? Is that a compliment or an insult? I'll take it as a compliment. It means I'm big and muscular. Do not muzzle the ox while it is treading out the grain, and the worker deserves his wages. Now, October is normally considered Pastor Appreciation Month, and for most of the nation it is. Our board wanted to make sure that you knew that we are going to do Pastor Appreciation this year, but it will be in November because we're focused more on homecoming right now. There's one thing I want you to do next Sunday. Everything else we say and we talk about, if you want to fold your arms and go, "Humph," at everything next Sunday, you go right ahead. One thing I want you to do specifically next Sunday, when I announce and introduce and bring up to the platform Flag's first pastor, Max and Patty Phipps, would you please blow the roof off the place? Literally. I want Gene Bicknell to have to write another check to put a roof on that building because we have outdone one another in honor. We've outdone one another. And don't give me no stinking golf clap. Hey, Max and Patty Phipps, woo! No. Give me a Kansas City Chiefs punt return for a touchdown in overtime against the Denver Broncos. And when they get to the platform, don't stop, please. And when they get to the microphone, please continue. Monday through Friday, they worked full-time jobs in Baxter Springs and then drove from their house in Baxter Springs to Pittsburgh in 1993 to go ahead and set everything up so they could have a service for about 25 to 35 people in the basement of Memorial Auditorium. That's the tree that was planted that you're eating the fruit from. They moved to different rented locations and finally got to the spot where they were somewhat stable and then raised $19,000 in 6 months from 32 people, and they are two of those 32 people to buy the land you're literally sitting on and parked on right now. Outdo one another. If he starts crying, that's not the cue to stop. Right now, they're still in ministry. They're ministering. Basically, you have to go to Missouri, go to the middle of nowhere, take 4 more turns, and go 5 more miles, and that's where they're at. And they're loving God, and they're serving God where they're at. But I learned this past week, they're celebrating 50 years in ministry this year. Most of you know plenty of pastors that are no longer in ministry anymore, sometimes for bad reasons. They've been faithful for 50 years. But Max tells me that in his congregation, he's one of the young pups. And there's probably about 30 people coming on a good day. And he's still faithful. He doesn't know that we know he's celebrating 50 years, but we're going to honor him. He was our pastor for the first 5 years, but we're going to honor him like he's been here for 50 years. And so we're going to bless his socks off. So that other church may not know, the church he's pastoring may not know he's done 50 years, and they may not be in a position they can actually do anything. We are, and we will. Why? Because we're going to outdo one another in brotherly love. That's the only thing I'm asking for you next Sunday. The last point is, in this section here, who should we honor? We should honor believers who have served us. Believers who have served us. Paul is writing from a jail, and he writes to the church in Philippi, blah, 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 Jesus, blah, 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 Jesus, blah, 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 Jesus. And then he says, hey, I want to tell you about a guy, Epaphroditus. You sent him to me to help me out and everything, and he got sick, and he almost died trying to help me out and trying to honor God. And so I'm going to send him back to you. And Paul continues and says, therefore, I'm all the more eager to send him, so that when you see him again, you may be glad, and I can have less anxiety. I don't want him to die on my watch. Oh my goodness. Welcome him in the Lord with great joy and honor men like him. Honor them. What did Epaphroditus do? He served Christ. He served Christ in a way that you could not. Doesn't mean you wouldn't. Doesn't mean the people in Philippi would not, but they could not. Honor men like him. In that respect, maybe he was a single guy because he had the freedom to go ahead and do this. Because he almost died for the work of Christ, risking his life to make up for the help you could not give me. Honor people like him. And that's what a lot of next Sunday will be. We'll be honoring people. And when other people are being honored, if I was 14, I'd be sitting there twiddling my thumbs. And now if I'm 24 and other people are being honored, I might be twiddling my phone. I would encourage you not to do that. I would encourage you next week to look at them and realize how grateful you are that you get to be a piece of fruit of what they've done. And now, since you are a piece of fruit, inside of you is seed to bear more fruit. When we honor people next week, realize there are examples of commitment, examples of selfless sacrifice, examples of people who dreamed big, even though everything was small. And everything was very small. But they dreamed big, but they thought long. That's exactly where we are at again, to dream big and think long. And thank them. What do I thank them for? Are you closer to God now? Is your family closer to God? Are there things you've benefited from? Are there people you know that you love that are now closer to God because of something this church has done and God has used? Thank them for that. So I want to give you a cheat sheet. This will be something you can use next week. Because next week during greeting time, you're going to see a ton of people that you don't know. Do you know there's actually people that show up for the 8:30 service? Isn't that crazy? You 11:30 people? There's actually people here at 8:30. You probably never met them. You probably think they come from another planet. But they're going to be there. And you know what? They're not going to know you attend. And you may not know they attend. So when we have a greeting time and you're going, what do I say to these people? What do I say? Here's what to say. What year did you start attending Flag? Let's practice. Ready? 1, 2, 3. What year did you start attending Flag? What year did you start attending Flag, John? 2015. What year did you start attending Flag, Phil? 2016. Matt, what year did you and Christina start attending Flag? 2004. If anyone gives you an answer that is before your year, look them in the eye and say thank you. Show them honor. Tell them, man, I'm so thankful for what you've done because this is what's happened in my life. If anyone gives you an answer that starts with the word 19, please love them. Please thank them. We owe them so much, so much. And it blesses us too, because when we show honor, we open doors for God's blessing in our life. When we dishonor God, and all of us have at times, it doesn't limit God's value. If this is God's value and you dishonor God, God's still valued like this. But when we open doors for blessing, when we honor others, it opens a door for God to bless us. It doesn't limit God. It limits what he can do in our life if we're going to dishonor people instead of honor them. When we show honor, we open doors for blessing. Second, we build up others. I'm not asking you to shout out an answer because I don't want to trip anybody up, but what's the opposite of honor? The best word I could come up with the opposite of honor is shame. And every single one of us have some sort of a deposit of shame in our life from shameful things that have happened to us or shameful things that we have done. And you know what happens when somebody honors you? It crushes those deposits of shame. It crushes them when somebody honors you. When someone declares that you have inherent value because you are the image bearer of God, shame has to find another dark place to hide. Let's bless one another. Let's honor one another because we'll build up others and we'll also build up ourselves. An insecure person would struggle to give honor to somebody else. It's hard to give somebody else value if you don't feel you have any. But if you are low on something, the scripture would indicate whatever you are low on is probably exactly what you need to give away. And so I want to share with you one of the reasons I think this is so important. And if you've been coming for a long period of time, like 2004, you've heard me say this again and again. If you've come for a long time, you've been many times, hey, everybody stand, and hey, if you've been coming 6 months, sit down, and let's honor those who've been coming for a long time. Let me tell you why I think it's important. Because one of these days, we're going to challenge you to get off your rear and serve like crazy. Matter of fact, we did it last week, and we had about 20 people respond, and 15 of them make their way forward that were men that were moving forward on that. Saw them serving today. We're going to challenge you to serve. And when we challenge you to serve, we want you to see that when you serve, we're not going to forget it. What we're going to do as best as I can, as long as this microphone is surgically attached to my head, we're going to remember it, and we're going to honor it, and we're going to praise it. And when we challenge you to give sacrificially, and we will, that's coming real soon. When we challenge you to give sacrificially, we want you to see that those who've given sacrificially before will be honored. Not praised, not worshiped, honored for what the sacrifices that they have made. And when you sacrifice, we want you to know we're not going to forget or neglect your sacrifice as well. We are fruit. Jesus talked about fruit in John 15. He said this, hey, remain in me and I'll remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. You have to remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. If a man remains in me and I in him, he's going to bear much fruit, much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. This is to my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourself to be my disciples. And we are eating fruit from trees that we did not plant. And back in the day when they were planting, they were paying $150 a week to rent one room in the basement of Memorial Auditorium, and that was stretching them. Do you realize we probably dropped $100, maybe $125 just to put the drinks out today? No, I'm not getting ready to twist you for an offering. We already took the offering. I'm letting you know that that's the seed they planted, and this is what we are harvesting, and we are reaping. We have resources. We have a reputation that gets visitors in the door where you don't have to be embarrassed when you invite somebody in. We are reaping the rewards of someone else's risks and someone else's sacrifice. So therefore, what are we? Accountable. Accountable to be fruitful. Jesus also said in that same chapter, he cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit. Ouch! I want to bear fruit. I don't want to have my branch cut off. While every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes it so it can be even more fruitful. We can be even more fruitful than what we are. And what's been invested in us, we're required to be fruitful. It's expected and it's rewarded. And it's been too long, Flag Church, since we stepped out in faith. And it's been too long since we asked people to give sacrificially. To whom much is given, much is required. So next Sunday, will we celebrate our past? We will, but we're not going to focus on the past or stay in the past. That past is leverage. That past is jet fuel to move forward for the future.